I've dipped into total darkness before in a very familiar environment with other people. This was not that. To be completely alone in silence and darkness with myself only was something my body's never known, and that in itself at first and for quite a while it took a lot of adaptation. It was in part like wondrous and utterly awe-inducing. of many wow moments of just the feeling of it and the sound of it and this sort of sense of freedom, to get to completely be with myself without anybody pulling me away or the pressure of anything that I need to do next, or any distractions. And I was actually very excited for that because I've been, I think like many people, kind of a more preoccupied than I like, more overwhelmed than I'd like, more distractible. And so I was really excited for that. And rather quickly I felt just how much was present on a subtle level in my body that doesn't get my attention and my direct attention hardly ever. And there was a real, it was really interesting to have the most prominent phenomena of my experience be the inner sensations of my body. That was the first thing I really noticed, was how much more aware I was of even the subtlest little sensations, whether that was physical or emotional. And there was some nervousness for sure in not having any depth perception and getting oriented to the space. But, well, thanks to this team of you guys, I was primed really well to not try to escape those subtleties as much as I probably would have otherwise. I definitely had a little regimen of things I wanted to do to enjoy myself in there every day, and thanks to the guidance I got, I was able to notice when those energies were rising and to attune to them within myself. And at first it was pretty uncomfortable. There was a lot of like my system had not known how to just be with what is present. It revealed to me so many different mechanisms of quickly trying to change my experience and make it better in like this story that I had about what was good and what was bad. And within just, a couple of days, I love that I can say I got to now, not that I had to. Wow, that's cool. I got to have deep experiences with really big emotions that have felt very overwhelming to me. It would begin as a subtle movement, a subtle emotional movement that I would get present with and listen to. And as emotions tend to do, there's layers to them, and one experience of emotion would open a door into something bigger and deeper, or just different, that was kind of paired or layered with that experience. And I got to move through some of that restlessness and that discomfort and actually touch a place of expressing my grief for my father, who passed away 4 years ago almost now, in 2020, in such a way that I've never expressed, I've never even let myself feel grief on that level. And it's been scary for me. I've managed it in many different ways, consciously and unconsciously. And the feeling that it came from was actually layers of, feeling like I'm in a bad mood or I'm agitated, and then being with that for a while, and then finally, because my body had nowhere else to run, feeling the impulse to curl up in the fetal position and just let myself kind of relax into the infancy of like this inner part of me. And then it emerged like a wave, and it was so cathartic. As it was happening, it was like, I've been so afraid of this for all these years, and it feels so good in a way, to let it come out and to be in the dark and by yourself in a soundproof room, being held by the earth essentially in this cave. You can feel it in your body, like it's holding you, and there's such a freedom to express without self-consciousness. That was the big gift of that moment, was no inhibition, no needing to bypass anything that wanted to be said or felt or screamed. And I've never been able to let grief move like that through me ever in my life. Even at the peak moments where I was feeling it in the past, there was some level of self-awareness that inhibited it ever so slightly. And what came on the other side of that expression of my grief and that contact with my grief was actually this luminous fearlessness. It was like there was this cloak of fear kind of humming around me for so long, guarding something and protecting me from something. And after I moved through that, I felt it just move. And from then on, I trusted the dark like a friend. It went from feeling like I was isolated to feeling like I was with a nurturing presence. Yeah. I got to have a lot of conversation with my heart without even using my voice. It was a very subtle experience. For me, this was very somatic and very tender and very it related so much to my emotional body and the ways that it communicates with me, which of course are silent but powerful and in some ways loud, if we're listening. And it's a real feat to listen right now, in the world that we live in. I think certainly more than ever in the history of humanity. And so I don't even remember to listen many days. And so it was a silent conversation of really profound insight. The wisdom that would come up in the smallest pearls, the simplest pearls of a shift in perspective, or a sudden illumination that just lifted an entire story off of my life that was kind of running me subconsciously on autopilot. These subtle, simple insights that I got from the dialogue with my emotional world feel like they're going to change my life forever. truly. You said to me, there were so many gems, and getting to have your visits every day was such a lifesaver in some moments. You kept inviting me into simplicity, and that's not my MO most of the time. And that was a real revelation for me. It was just noticing how much drama I create around I create through story making in my life and around the sensations that I have. Part of it, I think, is conditioning. Mm-hmm. I think part is, there was an interpretation created at some point in my life that's been reinformed over and over again because I'm scanning for confirmation of that story that I developed at some point. And so there's that piece. But I think all of those stories kind of protect against a certain level of development or progression, or they bring, I can speak for myself, but I recognize that they keep me in a familiar sense of my life. And that feels safe, even if that safety is actually, or it feels familiar, but even like not feeling safe is a familiar feeling for me. So when I was a little girl, I was terrified of the dark. I used to lay with my head outside of the bedroom on the floor in the light of the hallway and refuse to get in my bed because I was scared of the dark, and it was this whole melodrama. But I was having a imaginal experience that something bad was going to happen to me in the dark. And in so many ways I recreated that projected fear into my life in an adult way, and I don't notice it. It's just sitting in the background of my mind. And so this was very special ceremonial process for me because my inner child is still kind of in there with her stories, trying to protect herself from what might happen and not making contact with a good reality. And that was something that came through for me. Was there was just through the edge of my fear, as long as I sat there and allowed the experience to just hold me, and I allowed myself to meet it without avoiding it, I would make contact with a good reality that I was bracing myself wouldn't be. And you would offer to me, maybe it can be that simple. Like it doesn't have to be the explosive moment of transformation. It can be as simple as receiving care and receiving good things. And I felt that happening. It took some time for my system to trust that that's what was happening, because it was so wired to expect something scary or a bad surprise. And so it was like good surprises and lots of little victories too. There's a sweet simplicity to it where everything, there's no time, which is challenging at first, and maybe the entire time a little bit. There's no time, and so there's nothing to track, really. There's only the ever-present moment of now. And in that, there were little victories that were ever so simple and so sweet, like just hoping to find the right thing when I reach for it, and finding it and successfully never spilling anything, and making my way across the room with like a sense of direction and arriving at where I wanted to go. And it became a real, like, the gentlest, I think I told you this, but the gentlest big adventure of my life. It was so gentle, and yet in my inner world it was so novel, and it was so rewarding in the simplest ways. So yeah, it was so profound. a few beautiful things like helped me really land in that place of letting go of the need to transform. One was you offered me this invitation to be with the parts of myself, to welcome. You offered me the invitation to welcome everything that came. And I really took that to heart, because I came here with an intentional word that was welcome, and I felt like that was profoundly synchronistic. So it perked up my listening even more. And with that, I felt like I started to, as I allowed some of these energies in, like self-judgment, for example, was one phase of many. As I allowed these energies in, like self-judgment, and I could not really escape them, I could feel the way it was affecting me. And because I was tuned into myself on a more subtle level, and I could also recognize that I started to recognize how much of the attitudes I had towards myself about transformation were adopted. They were adopted from discontent parents and culture that's just urging us constantly to strive, achieve, and transform. And I had taken that on so unconsciously. I had a real victory moment of just saying, I don't want any of these beliefs I didn't consciously choose. And there are many. And I don't think I would have noticed that I didn't choose that. I absorbed that without such a beautiful quality of stillness and prolonged stillness, because there are many ways to get still for an hour or even a day. I've sat in so many ceremonies, but even 6 to 8 hours with ayahuasca, you're back interfacing with the world in some form, whether that's your roommate or the facilitator or something on an external level. And there's something about the prolonged time with yourself that yields these powerful pearls of insight, but they come with patience and presence. And I had one turning point moment after kind of meditating on this, where I was feeling anxious, and I sat down on my meditation cushion, and I was like, I've got to change my state. I can't stay in this state. And I sat there and I was like, I'm going to visualize. And I visualized all the things I wanted to happen in the next 6 months. And one by one, they came into my imagination, and I started to feel better. And then I realized, wow, this is all about things I don't have. Oh my God, like, this is not a good situation for me to ever feel happy. If my way of becoming happy is to visualize a future I want to manifest that includes a ton of things I don't currently have. And that was so clear for me in that moment that that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to cast a vision for the future. I'm here to come into deep intimacy with who I am in this like vulnerable, naked darkness. Like there's not even an identity here anymore. All that there is the raw truth of me. And I get the opportunity to show her that I love her, that I care, to let her receive care without me getting in the way with all of my ideas of what could be better. And that was a huge turning point. I spent a lot of time in there just loving on myself and my body, and like lots of gentle touch and feeling my body in space, because I had no visual reference point. And that also induces like a physical presence with yourself, because you kind of have to stay attuned to yourself in a physical way that's different than you can when you can just see yourself. So it was amazing.